Hello and welcome to the Route 1 show live here on YouTube. And we're taking a look at Huddersfield Town. And I'm delighted to say joining me on the live stream is the Huddersfield Hub's Steve Downs. Well, Steve, Warnock's back.
Warnock's back, the legend. I've got a dare to get 3 points.
Yeah, I noticed you said that in your article for the Huddersfield Hub about Warnock's return. So let's kind of push on from last week, because obviously last week when we spoke on the show, you were, well, to say negative would be putting it mildly, to be perfectly honest, and understandably so. It's a bit of a hole that Huddersfield have got themselves into this season. But and we did speak last week. We said, look, it's got to be a proper appointment. You said this is the last chance Huddersfield Town have to save the season now, is by getting a proper manager in. And to be honest, they've pulled it out of the bag. What's your reaction, Neil Warnock, back at the club?
Well, there was no other choice. Last week, I think I made my views pretty plain, as you've said. 95% of the fan base said the same. I think most people, to begin with, really last week, everybody thought that Chris Wilder would be the person to come in. But as the week went on, I think that what became apparent was that the club only wanted somebody in on a short-term basis, which meant that Chris really was going to be come out of the picture because he wants a longer-term deal, understandably so. And so whilst I think probably he was interested in the job, he wanted assurances that, you know, if the ownership situation would have been sorted, that, you know, he would be there for the long term. Obviously, that's still to be sorted out behind the scenes. Obviously, the focus is staying in the Championship. And so there were very few managers that would come with the correct experience and come on a short-term basis for the rest of the season. Warnock fell into that category. I didn't think we were going to get him, to be honest, because obviously he's been doing his little tour around the country, enjoying the joys of retirement. But seemingly, you know, we've tempted him back. I mean, it's quite interesting that the other week on a national radio station, he said that regarding the Cardiff City job, it wasn't something he was looking into, although everybody had made those connections because of his prior management of that club. That he was odds-on favourite to go back, and he came out and said basically that he wasn't interested and he was enjoying the traps of retirement, as I said. So I don't know how the heck we've persuaded him. I presume money is quite a big factor, maybe, but also, you know, I think there is that love there from Neil for us as a club. I think we do. Out of all of his clubs, I think we tend to maybe hold a special place in his heart from his time before, 27 years ago. So yeah, it's going to be it's the perfect appointment in my view.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was a surprise to me as well when it broke the news. I thought, wow, you know what a kind of big story that is. And Warner, you know, 74 years of age, he's managed 1,600 games. You know, his first managerial appointment going all the way back to 1980. He's got 8 promotions to his name. It's an incredible football management career, isn't it? And how do you sum up his relationship to Huddersfield Town? Obviously, he got you promoted in the mid-90s. It's, 30 years since he took over at the Terriers last time. I mean, what does he mean to Huddersfield Town fans?
So when we were in the mid-90s, things weren't going too good. We'd had a period where we'd ended up going back down to the 4th division again. Things were difficult. There'd been sort of mini resurgences, but nothing long term. Neil came in, I think, a bit like the Mick Buxton-esque of, you know, getting players to the club who would put, you know, all their effort in on a Saturday in front of our supporters. And so Neil's that kind of manager. He came in the first season. We made the Auto Glass Trophy, which for anybody under the age of probably 32 probably has no idea what that is. Me being 26 and acting more like an old man in a 26-year-old body, I obviously know about the Autoglass Trophy through research and that. But yeah, he got us to the final for that. We lost against Swansea City on penalties. But that learning curve at Wembley, that was the first time the club had been to Wembley since the 1930s. So that was a massive thing for the club back then. And then the next season was the promotion season. Basically, in the season that Autoglass Trophy happened, that was also the last season at Leeds Road. So that holds a very special place in people's hearts as well. Obviously, the ground was sort of falling to bits by that stage, but it was kind of like, when you have an old teddy bear and it's all falling to bits, but you don't really want to get rid of it. It was kind of that, really. I think a lot of people had a lot of good memories from Leeds Road. Obviously, fathers, grandfathers, great grandfathers have been to the ground, and great grandmothers and mothers and daughters as well. So, it's quite a big thing. Phil Starbuck scored the last ever goal there, and then we go into the new season, the new stadium, the McAlpine, as it was called back then, was built. Quite new for the time, really. Not a stadium that was sort of in your box square-esque type open air type stadium.
Yeah, it was always one of them stadiums. If you saw it going through Huddersfield, it was like, oh, look at that.
Yeah,
it was
one
one of them stadiums, wasn't it? It was like, oh, that's pretty tasty.
It was like Back to the Future sort of esque, really, in its appearance, and modern in terms of the way that it was set up, and that was being built. Ironically, we lost the first game. Well, we didn't lose the first game because I wanted a story about how we played a friendly, and we actually won a friendly at the stadium. I think it was against Blackburn. But nobody remembers that, and so everybody says that the actual first game against Wycombe we obviously lost. But then that season we went on to win promotion against Bristol Rovers in the final. Marcus Stewart played for Bristol Rovers at the time, later became an absolute town legend a couple of seasons after that. And people just remember Neil, and his stories about, how we went through that season, the players that we signed, Darren Bullock, Chris Billy, obviously, and brought Andy Booth through that at that time. Ian Dunn. So there was, all these players have stuck in the mind for the last 30 years of town fans. And one thing's for sure, that the last 16 games of this season, Neil will be saying, if you stay up, you will have helped, rebuild the club for however long the next generation of fans, hopefully, to see us into the Championship for the next couple of years under new ownership. So, I think Neil's excited about coming back. It's quite nostalgic for him, but I think he knows that he's got a job to do to try and save this football club, and that's what he's good at.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you a bit surprised this never happened earlier, that he didn't somehow find his way back to Huddersfield Town kind of during this kind of 30 years since he was at the club almost? You would have thought it would have happened somewhere along the line, and it's kind of a bit surprising that it took this long, I suppose.
Not really, because obviously he had his time at Sheffield United in the Premier League. That lasted for, I don't know, 6-7 years or whatever. And then, QPR were up there, weren't they? So he went to QPR for a while, Palace. So these types of clubs sort of tempted him because he wanted to prove that he could manage in the Premier League. That he always said he's type of manager that shouldn't really be in the Premier League, and that's totally wrong. You don't need to be a fancy tactician to be in the Premier League. You need, you can be a Neil Warnock, a Tony Pulis, a Steve Bruce, them type of gritty, down to earth British managers that can survive in the top division. And so he took jobs that gave him that chance. Obviously, then went to Rotherham in 2015-16. Was appointed on the 11th of February 2016, and helped save that them. I mean, they were in an impossible position. I think they were on 33 points, something very similar to us. We're on 28, and saved them in the last 16 games of their season, exactly or very similar to the what he's got to do at us. So that was a bit of a different approach from him. And then he went on to Cardiff and had a great time at Cardiff and Middlesbrough, his last job. I think again he thought, big club in Middlesbrough. If you can create some magic there and turn them round, which he did, save them from possibly going down. To then obviously last season, trying to turn it round. Obviously didn't quite work, and they brought Chris Wilder in, ironically, who's also left the club since. So I'm not surprised he's not come back to town earlier. I would have loved it to have happened, but the most important thing is he's here now. Well, he's not here at the moment because he's somewhere still abroad, but he's travelling back today, and he'll be at training tomorrow. As we record this on Wednesday, so he'll be at training tomorrow or Thursday, and he'll be able to have a real look at the players and see what we've got. But I know, I'm pretty sure for a fact he wouldn't have taken this job if he didn't think he was going to be able to save us.
Yeah, and what a job it is. I mean, obviously, last night Cardiff beat Birmingham, so they're a few more points ahead now of Huddersfield Town, and situation is pretty dire at the moment. What does Warnock have to do? What are the kind of top of his to-do list when he walks into town, do you think?
Well, his top of the to-do list is obviously the obvious thing is get points on the board as quick as possible, and make sure we survive in this division. But I think the relatively what he's got to do quick is he's got to have a look at the squad. If you listen to all his ex-players, what they tend to do is, he'll have tomorrow at training, he'll have a game in the morning, trading sort of game, and work out who are the players that he wants in the trenches with him. I think as Town fans, we sort of have a good idea of who they might be: your Hoggs, your Lees, Pearsons, these type Rhodes, Ward. I think these types of experienced players will be just right up Neil's alley, and that's why I kind of think our squad sort of fits his way of thinking, really. He's not coming in to work with technically absolutely gifted players. He's coming in to work with our working bunch, and even though we've had one of the worst seasons for a long time, what I don't think has happened is the players have knocked down tools and not tried. Tom Lee said that in the press conference the other day, that they've always tried, and I think you can say that they have tried. They've made really bad mistakes, goals that have been terrible, being defensively, bad decisions, some players just not being good enough. But you can say that they've not tried, and for Neil coming in, he will accept that, at least they are trying, and hopefully they'll get right behind him. So he's got to lift heads up. Confidence is very down at the moment. The problem he has got is obviously we haven't got a transfer window for him to work any magic in, and so he's got to get the best out of what he's got at the club. But I think we are better. We have got a better squad than Blackpool. We've got a far better squad than Wigan, even though we lost to them the other day. I do think we're better than Cardiff, and I go as even far to say as I think we're better than Reading and Birmingham, who are on the slide at the moment. The issue, obviously, is that we're a number of points behind them at the moment, and we've got to catch up. Yes, we've got 2 games in hand on some clubs, but they can go very quickly, and we've got very tough fixtures coming up against top teams in this league.
If we rewind then, sorry to do this to you when you're clearly on a bit of a high with Warnock coming in, but if we rewind to the Wigan game, I mean, Wigan obviously at the bottom of the table, and it was a game on paper you looked at and you said, well, Huddersfield have to win that game. Certainly can't get beaten, but they did lose. What did you make of that game, and what did that game tell you about where the team is and where the squad is, really?
Well, it's just so low on confidence. Even in the first half where we sort of said, well, we've done kind of all right. We didn't really create a chance. And that's been our massive thing all season. We've let in terrible goals, and then at the other end, not being able to create any sort of scoring opportunities at all. Narcis Palash, nice guy, obviously cares about the club, come in as assistant manager and interim manager and taking over for that game. I think after losing, I get the impression that maybe the board thought if we'd have beaten Wigan, there might have been a purpose to maybe hang on with Narcissus for a couple of games. But as soon as we lost that game, then they had to bring in somebody. And I think it was quite clear that, Narcissus himself doesn't want the job long term, not yet anyway in his career. And so, he just a little bit out of his depth, really. He took Knockout off when really he was one of our best players. I thought Humbo did well. He looks like a decent player as well. But yeah, overall, very, very disappointing, very downhearted and very frustrated, really, because we've been in this run of games where we've played teams around us and not picked up the required points that we need. I mean, I think Neo has now got to win, six games out of our last 16, and that's a very tough test to order up for him.
Yeah, I mean, probably one of the big things that you would say as well, especially kind of the discontent around Fotheringham and how that kind of went towards, especially a relationship with the fans as well, seemed to never quite get going or quite spark up. And once that relationship's lost, it is very hard for a manager to turn it around. And one of the things Warnock has to do as well is lift the Huddersfield Town fans, but it seems like he's already done that, judging by the reaction.
He already has in terms of the disappointment. There is no way that wouldn't have happened. I mean, people are saying that outside fans are saying that just because we've appointed him, we're definitely staying up. That's not the case. There's a lot of hard work to be put in yet. We've got to win games to stay up to start with. Just because he's been appointed doesn't mean that we're definitely staying up. But it gives us a chance now. We had to sack Fotheringham. I think him and Kenny Miller, too inexperienced really with what's going on behind the scenes. A lot of pressure for them too. Like I've said before, there's no Huddersfield Town fan on this planet that didn't want them to succeed when they were first brought in. But after what had happened with Schofield, it seemed like the wrong appointment. And we could tell that in the first couple of games. It took us 20 games to realise that. And let's just hope it's not too late. I'm sure Mark will go on to, to manage another side, whether that's as high as us or the Championship. I'm not too sure. That's only time will tell that. He'll obviously be very disappointed. Probably, I'm imagining, quite angry as well. He probably doesn't think that we, the supporters, gave him a proper chance. I would disagree with that. I think, yes, he had a lot of criticism and some maybe went slightly far than it should have. But when you come into a football club and you're saying the sort of comments that he was saying and then are not able to back it up within a couple of games and tactical choices seem totally wrong from the offset, then, there's always going to be questions to ask. And as I've said to many other people, Huddersfield Town fans are not a volatile supporter base. We're not a supporter base that likes to protest. We're not a supporter base that doesn't put our full heart behind the team. Even in bad games, we like the other day, the other home game against QPR. I mean, the whole second half, we tried to lift the team as much as we could, but it didn't happen. So he had to go, really.
Yeah, I think there's only one person I know that backed Fotheringham, and he's not a Huddersfield Town fan. He's actually our co-host here on the Route One show. Unfortunately, he's not on this podcast. I have invited him. I'm hoping he can join us at some point because I just want to hear his defence for Fotheringham. But it's Chris Bell. I think he still thinks the Cowley brothers should have still been there. But
well, that you see, Chris, as much as I like him, he does. He does have some weird and wacky thoughts, and keeping hold of the Cowleys is definitely another point that I should disagree with him on, and certainly Fotheringham. That is not something I could agree with him at all. But this is what football does. It creates opinions, creates debate, and that's what's great about the sport. I mean, some people think it's there are some town fans out there that think appointing Warnock is a terrible decision. There are. It's not 95% of the. I'd say 95% of the fan base are quite happy with, and delighted that Neil's come back. But there are that odd 2%, 3% that think it's the wrong call, and that's fair enough. I mean, I think that they maybe need to give their head a shake and have a bit of a lie down. But that's not to say that they're not allowed their opinion and their opinion shouldn't be respected. But to me, we couldn't have appointed a better person than Neil.
Yeah, well, I think according to Chris, I think he'd still have Sven as England boss, judging by what he likes there.
Can we get Chris on? Can you give him a message?
Yeah, I know. We need to give him a kick up the backside, don't we? We will. His invite is pending. Chris, get on, mate. We need to.
Get on, Chris.
Some things to discuss with you. So just looking at that, I mean, you've mentioned obviously 95%, resounding optimism around Warnock. Are there any concerns in your head about his appointment? If you were being kind of playing devil's advocate, is there anything where you're thinking, oh, that might be an issue? I mean, one thing, it's a shame almost that Sorba Thomas and John Russell have left. You think, those two players at Warnock could have really, kicked on and helped rediscover their best form potentially.
Yeah, more Sorba than John Russell. I think John Russell's mind had gone really. I don't, even the magic of Warnock, I don't think would have turned Russell round. I don't think he was the player that he was last year, and that was mainly because of Lewis. As we've said before, Lewis did overrun him alongside him, giving John the space to, pass the ball and get into some nice positions. But we're a very different midfield now, and we're a more workmanlike midfield than what we were last year. Taking out Lewis, of course, who personally I'd have back in a heartbeat. More Sorba. Although I think Sorba's head is in the wrong place. He with the comments he said that he wanted to be at the top of the division and playing for playoffs, and so I think he come back from the World Cup and just wasn't interested in helping the club fight against relegation. To be honest, I think he made that quite clear. And if I were Neil, 16 games to go, I don't want anybody on the pitch that's not prepared to die for the shirt. As in his famous quote, "I've got to die for you've got to die for 3 points." Well, we need people dying for 3 points, and I don't think Sorba's head is in the right place or mentally for it, and so he's at Blackburn now, helping them push for promotion. Whether he comes back to town and he's prepared to put on a Huddersfield shirt and fight for this club again, it will only be seen in the clarity of time, I suppose. But I think Neil will. I think Neil knows. Obviously, he knows the situation we saw, but doesn't he? So he knows that we can't recall him back, or if we can, I don't think we would anyway. But
no.
I still think he wouldn't have taken the job if he didn't think he had the players already in the building that can turn it round. The interesting thing for me is what formation he's going to play. Is he going to? I mean, you might not know anything about like the young lad Diarra, who's been one of the standouts really this year when he has come on. Fast, forward thinking, loves to have a run at people. He could be Neil's type of player in terms of trying to get more on the pitch. But that will be interesting. Or does he go for the tried and tested and makes us workmanlike, but we're still not mega attacking wise. I don't know how he's going to play it really. It'll be quite interesting to see over the first 2 games what he's going to do. Obviously against Birmingham on Saturday. Against a team that are in free fall. That's a team that we could try and drag back into it. Be nice to do that. Birmingham, not a club that I'm particularly enamoured by. So it'd be interesting.
Yeah, and when you look at Warnock tactically and that kind of thing, I mean, what is a Warnock team? I mean, what are the qualities of a Warnock team? I mean, in my mind, it's kind of, not always pretty, but it's effective, it's direct, it's, blood, sweat, and tears. Are you expecting that level kind of to be brought in pretty much straight from the bat?
Oh, I think there'll be blood, sweat, and tears. I don't think he won't stand for anything else, which is what it should be. I think it's a bit bad saying that it's always direct and long ball, because I don't think he's always been that type of manager. I think, yes, in circumstances he had maybe at Rotherham, it was slightly more direct than maybe what in other jobs, but his teams have played some nice stuff over the years. I mean, Cardiff and QPR particularly played some nice football. So
Adulterat.
yeah, so we're not talking. I mean, Sean Dyche always tries to protect his style, but his style, I would say, he's far more direct than what Neil's is, and Sam Allardyce as well. So I think it'll be blood, sweat, and tears. I think it'll be if you're not putting the effort in, you're not going to play. So I'm sure they'll all have watched the YouTube videos as we all have over the last couple of days since he's been appointed, reminiscing about his his little rants at Sheffield United and at Town particularly. So the players will have to get used to very quickly what he's about, because he'll stamp it out and he won't have anybody that's not going to try. No, definitely not.
What do you think of players like Radoni and Knockout? How do you think they'll kind of react to Warnock's management? Do you think he'll be able to get the best from them two? Because just from the outside, for me, it seems like them two are pretty key, to be honest. I might be weighing them out there, but
I think Jack is a work type player anyway, so I think he'll like Jack. Always running, tries his hardest. A lot of the time, stuff doesn't come off for him, but that doesn't mean to say he doesn't try. Town fans are very split on him, whether they think he's good enough. I mean, the kid's come from Wimbledon. Let's not forget that. And he scored 12 goals.
Is that right? Because I seem to recall that in the summer you were probably most excited about him, weren't you? Because obviously, like you say, he did amazing at Wimbledon, and it was certainly someone I thought was going to be, odds on for a good season,
Yeah, but you have to remember as well, the season that we've sort of had doesn't mean that he would have excelled. It's a new league for him. It's a very big step up. I mean, he's come from a bottom League One club that was then. I mean, they're in League Two now, but they were bottom of League One. They got relegated, and he scored 12 goals in that team, and that was a rubbish Wimbledon side. Yeah. So the step up to the Championship is big, and he's only a young lad, so I think he's 21, 22. So he's still coping with the rigors of what Championship football is, coming up against players that are faster, bigger than him, stronger, more mentally aware. So it's difficult. From what I've seen of him, I'm one that thinks that he'll be a good player for us. I still believe that he's going to thrive when we get into a system, because the beginning of the season as well, he was tried in a lot of different positions. He either came in from the left wing, played him in centre midfield, played him at number 10, played him at a centre defensive midfield role. So I think he's played quite a lot of different positions, and whoever's been in charge hasn't really found the right place for him, and that can confuse a young player as well, really, because he might be thinking, well, where is my best position? I knew what it was at Wimbledon, but I don't know what it is at this level. So I think there's no lack of effort there from Jack, and I really like him. I think he'll become a very good player for us. I expect he'll be one that will either be here for a number of years, or we will sell on quite quickly to clubs above us. Knockout, I think Neil will just come in and probably see him as a bit of a magic touch, really. You
Yeah.
know, he might have to treat him a bit of the Abel Tarak type where,
Stroke his
you
ego a
know,
bit.
yeah, you know, but from what I've seen, I mean, he was very disappointed to come off at Wigan. I mean, he looked very annoyed, to be honest. He was like, "What the hell are you taking me off for? I'm having a great game." He did,
Yeah.
honestly. And that's what I like. What I do like about Knockout is, all right, he's not the quickest. He's got skill. And I do actually believe he's here for the right reasons. You know, I mean, he could come in as a big Charlie and say, right, been promoted from the Championship 3 times, played in the Premier League. You know, I've been one of the best players at certain clubs, and all I have to do is turn up, and I'm only going to be here for 6 months, 3 months, or whatever. But he hasn't, and he does. You know, he does try. I mean, he's the best technical ball player we've got by far, and I think Neil will put him into somewhere where he can really hurt teams. I mean, he normally plays a 4. Well, at Rotherham, he played a 4-2-3-1 system, so I would play Knockout in the number 10 role of the 3 behind the striker. That's where I will put him, so he can get on the ball, get the ball from the midfielders, and turn and really, you know, ping it out to the wings or put it through for Jordan up front. You know, I will play Rhodes up front, really.
Yeah, it's interesting as well, isn't it? Obviously, played Blackpool, you know, a couple of weeks ago, and they've got another kind of Championship specialist, you know, in Mick McCarthy, and it's an interesting dynamic because obviously Huddersfield's first game of the season was against Burnley, and Vincent Kompany's winning a lot of plaudits for this kind of tactical style that he's bringing in, and it's kind of Pep-esque, and then you've got that versus now obviously Warnock, McCarthy coming in. Is there still space in the game for those kind of older, you know, battle hardened managers, or do you think it's that kind of is slowly being phased out?
No, you'll always need them. Clubs will always, in our position, need somebody who's got experience. So, you know, it's great at the moment that Burnley it's great for their fans. I mean, I work with one of them, and he's absolutely delighted since they've had 7 years under Dyche or whatever, and now we've gone to actually playing football. You know, we
just to ask you, I was going to say, sorry to interrupt, just to say, Burnley fan. So, what is he actually kind of like? Is it like a blessing in disguise, almost, that they got relegated? The fact that they've been able to kind of get Kompany in, and you know, by all accounts, I mean, the style of football, you can see it flourishing in the Premier League as well.
Yeah, because what his point of view was, obviously they went down and they could rebuild. I mean, the squad needed rebuilding. Dyche had put so many years into that club where there were certain things that had been set up in certain ways that, you know, Vincent's come in and being a fresh of you know, a breath of fresh air, really.
Yeah.
Sort of like when Wagner came to us, you know, it was totally different and out of the blue, that it made everybody sit up and listen, new ideas, fresh thoughts. And that's what Vincent's brought to Burnley, and the fans are loving it because they've not seen football like it since God knows when.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he's coaching under Pep, and he's obviously being a top flight player. He'll have all the ideas under the sun of how to play good football, and it will be interesting to see if. I mean, I think they're going to win the league by a canter, to be honest. But
Yeah.
you know, when they go up into the Premier League, it'll be interesting to see how good they are against teams that are in that division. I mean, you look at the Premier League this year; it's been pretty poor, to be honest. Southampton, you guys, Leeds, Wolves, you know, teams down the bottom haven't been good at all. I mean, I would say that a lot of the top end Championship teams would be pretty all right against a number of the bottom clubs.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting. But there'll always be space for the older managers. I mean, I wouldn't expect Warnock to take another job after us. I think we will be his last dance. But
I wonder who the oldest manager there's ever been in the Football League. I wonder who that would be. That would be interesting to know, that, wouldn't it?
It could be Warnock. Could be Warnock. I mean, he's our oldest ever manager. The next one after him was, I want to say, he was like 62 in the 90s. I want to say I don't know. I should know that really, but yeah, Mick McCarthy was the oldest one until we appointed Warnock the other day. So I mean, Mick's been around the game, knows what to do. I'm sure he will help Blackpool and try and get them out of problems. I know he was on the radio the other day and saying, the last thing that really he wanted to hear was Neil Warnock coming into a club that was down the bottom like they are. And
absolutely.
I think that will have affected clubs down the bottom. The last thing they would have wanted to see is Neil Warnock coming into Huddersfield Town, it's particularly Cardiff. I mean, I think Cardiff are in big trouble. I know they won. I know they won the other night, but who did they beat?
So they beat Birmingham.
Yeah, I mean, Birmingham are a shell of a club.
Yeah.
So that's why we need to beat them Saturday. We need to do the exact same as what Cardiff have done to them. And I mean, if I were a Birmingham fan, it'd be very difficult for me to go on Saturday because I just think there'll be too much of a whirlwind. I mean, the crowd will be up, the players will be, running their hearts out. I just think it'll be an absolute whirlwind for Birmingham on Saturday. I'm hoping so, and it wouldn't surprise me if we beat Birmingham quite comfortably, really.
Yeah. Well, you hope so. I mean, what a kind of introduction that will be. There is a game this evening. It's Stoke, and they've only got they're only 6 points in front of Huddersfield. They've only had 2 wins in 10 games themselves. There's going to be players out there wanting to impress the boss who's in the wings waiting, surely, and hopefully, you would think that would hopefully give an extra 10% to the performance. What do you think?
Well, Stoke are a weird club because I think they started the season okay, and it's just gone a bit flat there. Obviously, they've been on this recent run of poor games. We played QPR a couple of weeks ago, obviously with Fotheringham in charge, and they've been on a similar run, not one for 6, 7, 8, 9 games like Stoke. So, but we need a different result this time around. Got a draw against QPR. We need to win really tonight. Nobody, as the old famous saying goes, nobody wants to go to Stoke on a Wednesday night. But hopefully our players will be up for it. Yes, I think. Well, Neil will definitely be watching the game.
Yeah.
He'll have a stream somewhere. I think he's still like I said, he's abroad. He might be, he's probably on his way back, but he definitely will be having a stream up watching the game because that will give him some ideas as well. Even if we don't play the style of football or systems that he'll get a sense of the players and what their ability is. And so it just needs to be a win. I mean, I hope Narciss goes out on a win, really. It'd be nice for him, particularly after the Wigan debacle. Just I hope that's the lowest we get this season, and it's just all up now for the.
I bet he's sending him a few texts,
Well,
just play knock out a bit further left, or right? He'll be just go on, just do this. Come on.
I think for Narciss in the press conference the other day, he was well excited, to say that he was going to be booted out of his, booted out the main position. He were like he'd had an extra shot of energy, really, saying how he wants to learn under such an experienced manager and can't wait for Neil and obviously Ronnie Jepson, who was a legend of the club before in Neil's time. Coming in and working under them. I mean, Narciss quite clearly is very happy to be at the club, which is great. I mean, we want people here in the building that want to be a part of the team and the town more generally. And Narciss clearly wants to be that. He could have. He said himself he could have left when Carlos left in the summer. He could have gone with him to Olympiacos and then probably to West Brom, but didn't want to go. Wanted to stay at town, and really has had to put up with probably a lot of rubbish this season. And had his chance against Cardiff, won. That will be a great memory for him. Wigan, he'll have been very disappointed with that the other day, as we all were. I just think tonight, if the players can just give another extra 10, 20%, it'd be lovely to go into Saturday thinking that, we got 3 points on Wednesday. It's a nice little present for Neil to come into on Thursday morning. All the players are buzzing. You know what I mean? It's the atmosphere's just changed around the. He's walking into a positive atmosphere instead of a negative one. I mean, it'd just be perfect if we could just win tonight, even if it's 1-0. And I'm not really bothered how the goal goes in. It could go off any part of the player's anatomy for me, as long as it goes in.
Is Blackwell?
That's another Neil quote, by the way.
Yeah.
Go check it out if you've not
that
seen
in
it.
there. Is Blackwell back as well? Is he?
I'm not sure that Town have
I've
just
not seen him mentioned. I know, obviously, Ronnie Epson, like you said, but I don't know about Blackwell.
No,
it's not proper, is it? If Blackwell's not there as well, he's part of the gang.
Yeah, I think he might be. I would expect him to be. I'm not sure really. He has been with him. I'm sure he was with him at Borough in his last job, and he's been obviously were there when he were at Rotherham and Cardiff. So I'm sure he will be. I mean, there's no reason why he wouldn't be, and I'm sure Town would be happy to have him there. So be interesting to see if he is. I think obviously Ronnie Jepson's taken up the main assistant role, so that was the one also that, if Town were going to announce Warnock, that then, they're going to announce that Jeppo's coming back as well. So you never know. Hopefully Blackwell's in there. He's an integral part of the team, isn't he? So,
Yeah, absolutely. Looking ahead then to the fixtures, obviously Stoke tonight, we know he's not going to have any impact in that game. Well, we'll see about that. I'm sure, like I say, there'll be a few texts flying about. Birmingham, obviously, you mentioned the big one at the weekend, and you generally fancy Huddersfield to do something for that. Going out after that, I mean, but tough away game against Burnley, but wouldn't it just be Warnock-esque to pinch something against top of the league?
Yeah, but do you know what I love about that is we brought, if we win tonight, and like I said, they go in with positivity and everything to the Birmingham game, and we get another 3 points against Birmingham, we'll go into the Burnley game where nobody will give us chance. And the only people that will give us chance is Neil. And he'll be in the dressing room and he'll be like, nobody gives you a chance. They're only Burnley. They're not Barcelona. I know they start with the same letter at the start of the name, but I just think he loves that though. And I think he will, even though these fixtures are really tough and probably tougher than what he had at Rotherham, to be fair.
Yeah.
So I think if he keeps us up, I know the points difference was more at Rotherham, but the fixtures were slightly easier. So I do think if he keeps us up, I think it'll be a bigger achievement for him. But I think he'll have looked at the fixtures and rubbed his hands together and be thinking, right, there might be tough fixtures, but my teams generally do well against being as underdogs. And that's what it is now. 16 cup finals and being underdogs and all that. And we've got Norwich, Watford, West Brom coming up. I mean, how much do we want to beat West Brom because Carlos is there? Quite a lot, to be quite honest. You know what I mean? And he might be desperate to beat us, but we're certainly desperate to beat him. Obviously, it'll be a bit nostalgic under with Norwich because of Wagner. But then, the last couple of games, Cardiff and Reading. I mean, the ironic thing is obviously the two teams above us in Rotherham and Cardiff are the two teams that he's previously saved from relegation. And in terms of Cardiff, then gone on to earn promotion with them. So it'll be sad for probably him in terms of if he's got to relegate one club instead of us. But I don't think that'll bother him on match day, do you?
No, absolutely not. I reckon he might stay on, if he keeps them up. I reckon I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a year. They give him a year contract and let's see what he can do. Let's see if we can get, 94, 95 all over again.
Well, football's a very different place now. I mean, that 94, 95 team, we have bricklayers and, electricians in team and God knows what, people that, I mean, Darren Bullock came from non-league, Nuneaton, and Neil signed him after 7 minutes of watching him, against the Met Police. You it's not. Football's a very different place now, but the main job is to make us stay in the Championship. I think next year there's a lot to sort out behind the scenes first, to be quite honest, selling the club and all that sort of thing, and then it'll be talk about next managers. I mean, if Neil stays on for a year, great. I personally think he won't do. I think he he loves this coming in and saving us, and then sort of he'll retire again for the 6th time properly. but I think after that, I mean, Chris Wilder might stay out of a job, and we might get him in the summer when the club's been sold and there's new ownership. You just never know. There's a lot between now and obviously when we come to next season starting that could potentially change about the club. So it's interesting for us guys on the podcast because you'll never get bored.
Exactly. Any movement on the ownership then? Any kind of whispers about what's happening or anything at all? Any updates?
No, not really. There's various rumours that I can't really sort of give any credence to be honest, in terms of the information I might know. Nothing concrete, certainly. I think, to be honest, all focus for us as supporters and for the people behind the scenes now, where they're going to be trying to sell the club at Dean and Phil and Baldwin, but I think we all need to now come together to just make sure we stay in this division, because if we stay in this league, as I've said previously, it's far easier for them to sell the club, because they can say, look, you're one step away from the promised land again if you get it right. Here's the stadium, the training ground, blah, 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 blah. Where if we go into League One, it's a more difficult sell, and League One's a terrible league. I mean, I really don't want to. As much as, listen, Fleetwood's a lovely club, and I'm sure that, I've been to Fleetwood, nice little ground, lovely fish and chips there and all that, but I really don't want to play Fleetwood. If I'm honest, I don't want to play Derby, and they're in League One, so
if Bradford City get promoted as well, you don't want any of that messing about, do you?
Well, we don't want you keep saying, well, you should have appointed Mark Hughes.
I wasn't going to say it. I really was.
You are though. You are.
Or the Mark Hughes versus Warnock. That would be something else.
Every time you text me, are you going to appoint Mark Hughes? No, we're not appointing Mark Hughes. He's all right at Bradford.
I know. I couldn't believe it. I was like, how Bradford City got him in Huddersfield? I'd gone for him, but there you go. Look, you've got Warnock back, so what does it matter in the end? Predictions for tonight, then, Steve. How do you see that one going?
Losing 3-0. No,
come on, come behave.
No, I think if we win 2-0, that would be nice. Like I say, I'm not. Even if we win 1-0, I'll be ecstatic. So I'll go with 1-0. I'd love it to be 2, but I'll go with 1-0.
Fantastic. I see that Chris has managed to duck us for the entire time we've been online. We'll get him 1 week. We'll get him 1 week.
I haven't spoke to him for about 5 months since he backed Fotheringham all that time ago, wasn't he? He got, one of them foam fingers out, and he were like, Fotheringham's #1 fan. Party poppers.
That's why he's in hiding. Fotheringham's #1 fan in hiding. That's what it is. I'm sure of it. But we'll find him. We'll dig him up somewhere. So
dig him up. That's a bit extreme, isn't it?
Oops! Have I just revealed what's really happened there? Oops! No, he's alive. I promise he's alive. We've not done anything.
There's been a murder, have there?
No, I promise. He's safe in Bradford somewhere. I'm sure.
Live on the Route 1 podcast. Breaking news.
I know. That's it.
Co-presenter murders the other one.
Exactly, yeah. It was them Fothering opinions. I just couldn't take it anymore. I was like, no, please, Chris, stop.
Anyway, you'll be glad to know that Jesse Marsh is now not taking the Southampton job. He's reapplied for the Leeds job, so that's what I've heard.
Well, I know. Well, do you know? Well, actually, it's funny. This kind of similarities between Huddersfield and Leeds, actually, which I know Huddersfield Towns will loathe to even be mentioned in the same breath as Leeds, but just in terms of the type of managers they are, the kind of stuff they were saying, but also now you look at Leeds and what they've done is they've kind of gone for the interim. The interim's kind of taking it forward. The board are dithering about actually making an appointment, whereas Huddersfield Town have gone, you know what, this guy, get him in. He's got the track record. exactly what we kind of talked about last week, and that's exactly what they've done. Actually, probably someone that you didn't think were going to be available to do it, and they've gone and done it. So it just shows you that
one name, Big Sam. Come on.
I don't
No, but you see, why is that reaction?
Cowley brothers.
No. But you've just said to me, right? We've talked
Yeah.
for however long now about Warnock and our experiences, and you've said, have those types of managers got time now to be in the game and that sort of thing. But yet, whenever I've just mentioned Big Sam, the first reaction is, "Oh no, we don't want him."
Do you know what it is? There's like a kind of there is a bit of a snobbery because I think it's like
because you're Leeds fans.
Well, yeah, possibly, yeah. But inbuilt snobbery. Well, I think you know what it is. It's because we played such great football under Bielsa, and it's like we can't lower ourselves to.
Yeah, and they nearly got you relegated.
I can't argue that point. I still think he would have saved us, but never mind.
No, I think he would have saved. I think he would have saved you. But well, I'm saying he nearly got you relegated. Marsh has nearly got you relegated, and supposedly played quite attractive football. Yeah. So you need to. Well, that's arguable. Well, more attractive football than what you. Well, the more attractive football than what you say in Allardyce plays. So, surely now you need to go with a manager that doesn't play attractive football but gets results.
Well, look at Allardyce when he was at Everton. He got Everton's highest league position for years, and then the fans didn't want him because it wasn't considered pretty enough football. So I think you're right in that regard. I think it's just we're in that kind of world with football now where it's kind of tactics, it's stats, it's very kind of and this is what I was alluding to earlier when I saw about are those kind of older school ones being kind of slowly pushed to one side, really, because I think it's amazing really that Allardyce he doesn't even seem at the top of the list for any team that's been relegation threatened in the Premier League, even though he's done it time and time again, although he did take West Brom down. So there you go.
But West Brom were a basket case of a club.
They were terrible.
They're not in your, you're not a basket case of a club. Well, you need a manager coming in and sorting it all out, because it just seems like it's a bit like us. Things are going on behind the scenes. Players haven't really performed or been good enough. I'm sure that there has been plenty of effort there at Leeds, but you need to, it's all right having effort, but you need to get results. And we've now, luckily at Town, got a manager that I feel will get results. And I just think Leeds are differing a bit, and you can't differ too much longer, otherwise you're not going to have enough games to get the points you need to keep you up, really.
No, absolutely right. It's funny actually with Warnock. I think Leeds is the only club he went to where it didn't really spark up. But we were a real basket case when he was in there. I remember his first game in charge. I can't remember who we were playing. I think it might have been Swansea or something. We absolutely battered him and we lost 1-0. And it never really kicked on for him at Leeds. I think obviously the fans as well. Leeds fans and Warnock, it's not a warm relationship really. So, can you believe I've come on a stream 50 minutes talking to you about how good Warnock is? Come on, I've got to be handed some kind of credit for that. I've put all my bias to one side.
I think because you mentioned Kevin Blackwell, you want him back as manager.
Yeah, get Blackwell. Yeah, if we get relegated, get Blackie in. There we go. We'll be fine. Good old Kevin.
But I do think your board is differing a bit, to be honest. And you need somebody in there quick. I find it interesting. Southampton after firmly probably agreeing by all it seems to go for Jesse Marsh in a verbal agreement, they've now turned on the reels and going in a different direction. I find that quite interesting. But
I'm relieved. I'm glad he's not turning up at Ellen Road in a couple of weeks because we play Southampton. And the writing would have been on the wall. You just know exactly what would have happened. Finally wins a game at Ellen Road and it's against Leeds.
Be nice if I mean, I don't want to antagonise people on the podcast, but it would be nice if Leeds.
Do you antagonise people? No.
Be nice if Leeds came down and we got to play you again next season.
Oh, I tell you what, then we'd can you imagine these conversations? Then it'd be a bit feisty, wouldn't it? If there's any dodgy decisions. Oof.
Good job we're not in the same room together, isn't it?
Exactly. If you've been watching the video, enjoying the content, please give us a like. Please add your comments as well. Huddersfield Town fans, let us know. Are you excited about Warnock's return? How's it going to pan out? What's going to happen with the board, etc. And also subscribe to the channel for more content from Steve Downs from the Huddersfield Hub. Steve, a pleasure once again. That's flown us that. I can't believe we've been on 50 minutes there. But
Well,
we've got to get Chris on next time. If I have to go around his house and record it with him, we'll get him on. But yeah, thanks again for joining us, and it's looking a lot brighter this week, and hopefully get a couple of decent results before we next speak.
Yeah, hopefully so. We're not into porridge territory anymore. But glad to be on again, and we always enjoy a chat about football in general and mainly Town.
Good stuff. Speak to you again soon.
See ya.